Have you ever just stopped and thought about how weird it is that we are pretty much the only species on this entire planet that actively fights its own biological need to rest? Seriously, we're going to dive into this because it's one of the strangest battles humanity has ever picked, a full-blown, centuries-long war against sleep itself.
I mean, think about it, right? Birds go to sleep when the sun sets. A bear follows its gut and hibernates for months. You don't see any other animal out there inventing clever ways to stay awake when its body is just screaming for a break. But us, we do it every single day. So what is going on with us?
And this really lays it out. The entire animal kingdom pretty much operates in sync with nature. They work with their biology. But we've decided to go down a totally different path. We live by the clock, not the sun. And in doing so, we've basically declared war on our own internal programming. So, to really get a handle on this war, we've got to understand the battlefield. And that battlefield, well, it's located deep inside your own brain. This is where our internal body clock is. And it's basically the command center for the whole rhythm of our daily lives.
This command center has a name, the circadian rhythm. It's run by a teeny tiny part of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Don't worry about the name, but just know it's our master biological clock. It controls everything from your body temperature to releasing the hormones that tell you, hey, you're sleepy, or okay, time to be alert. For basically all of nature, this clock is the law.
And here's how it's supposed to work. It's a really simple, kind of beautiful system. The sun sets, which signals your brain to release the sleep hormone melatonin. Your body gets that signal, you start to feel tired, and you fall asleep. Simple. That's the natural blueprint anyway. But we have spent a very long time trying to rewrite it.
You see, this fight against sleep, it's not some modern thing we just came up with. Oh no, we've been developing weapons to conquer our biology for centuries, and the history behind it is surprisingly intense.
Get this. Back in 1910, the explorer Ernest Shackleton's crew was taking tablets of cocaine and kola nut extract just to literally force themselves to keep marching through Antarctica. And even before that, during the industrial age, the powerful caffeine from that same kola nut was actually weaponized by enslavers to squeeze more labor out of people. And yep, that exact combo, coca and kola, made its way into the original formula for Coca-Cola, which was sold as a pick-me-up stimulant tonic. Okay, let's fast forward to today. The weapons might have changed a little, but the war's still raging. Now, we've built an entire culture around being tired but wired, you know? We make up for not sleeping enough by chugging massive amounts of caffeine. And this whole epidemic, it's hitting young people the hardest.
And there's a really important biological reason for that. When a teenager goes through puberty, their internal clock literally shifts. Their brain just doesn't start releasing melatonin until way later in the evening, sometimes not until around 11 p.m. This makes it biologically almost impossible for them to fall asleep any earlier.
And this is where our modern schedules just create an absolute disaster. When we make a teenager get up at 6 a.m. for school, what we're actually doing is the biological equivalent of waking an adult up at 4 in the morning. We're essentially programming them for sleep deprivation day after day, stealing the very rest they need for things like emotional regulation and making memories.
So what happens when we win this battle every day? What's the trophy we get for pushing through when our body is begging us to just stop? Well, it turns out the cost of winning is dangerously high. Let's just start with a really devastating number. Chronic sleep deprivation in teenagers is directly linked to a shocking 58% increase in suicide attempts. This isn't just about feeling a little tired or groggy. This is a massive public health crisis with literal life-or-death consequences.
And the physical dangers are no joke either. This quote really puts it into perspective. Getting behind the wheel of a car on 5 hours of sleep or less is pretty much the same as driving drunk. Your reaction time, your judgment, it's all shot.
And honestly, the list just keeps going. This constant fight we're picking with our own biology, it's linked to a higher risk of obesity, a greater chance of developing diabetes, and it seriously messes with our ability to process emotions and form new memories. We are paying a huge price for just a few extra hours of being awake.
So all of this brings us to a really fundamental question. We've been fighting this war for ages, right? But what if the whole point isn't to win? What if victory looks completely different from what we've been told? Maybe it's time to just completely reframe this whole thing. We treat sleep like it's a luxury, or worse, a sign of weakness. But our biology is screaming at us that it's a non-negotiable requirement. Maybe the most heroic, the most productive, and frankly, the smartest thing any of us can do is to just stop fighting and surrender to our body's basic need for rest.
So I'm just going to leave you with this thought. What if you actually laid down your weapons? You know, the late nights, the extra cup of coffee, the guilt you feel for being tired. When you think about the incredibly high cost of this war, what would your health, your happiness, and your life actually look like if you finally stopped fighting and just started listening?